Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be breaking down the 50-30-20 rule and my thoughts on this. For a good chunk of time, the 50-30-20 rule is a good rule of thumb. We can kind of, have a little bit of everything. You have budget to spend on your needs, you have things you can enjoy with your money, your wants, and then you're also contributing to your future savings, which is your savings. We're going to kind of run that through and see if it's still attainable today. So, as briefly mentioned, the 50-30-20 rule says that you should spend about 50% of your total income on all your needs. This should be like your housing, your groceries, the essentials in your life that you need to go to work and, survive and live and so on. Then the next 30% should be on your wants, right? Let's say you want to eat out on Friday afternoons with your friends, have a good dinner, that type of thing, or you want to go to the gym or you have hobbies. This is where the wants goes. You want to book a trip to Europe maybe for the summer, right? This is where you allocate that 30% of your budget to do those things. And finally, and I think most importantly, is the 20% savings, which says that you should be saving roughly about 20% of your total income for the year for retirement. You should be investing it, or just, maybe for a house down payment down the future. So that's the 50-30-20 rule, kind of summarized briefly. And it sounds really simple to comprehend and clean, right? And for a while, it worked, right? But that is before prices have gone up. Over the last 5 or so years, the cost of living has gone up by 25%. So, you know, unless income has gone up by 25%, which it hasn't for most people, this rule just doesn't work the same anymore. It's not a playbook that everyone can use. It's not efficient. It's not convenient. It's not transferable to everyone, right? Uh, Along with that, just if you think about it, housing costs have gone up, inflation has accelerated over the past few years. Even groceries, I know at one point egg prices were up crazy this year, which is insane to think about. And that doesn't even factor in, most people have student loans and other type of credit card debt and car or house loans that they need to pay off, right? So all that has been affected by those interest rates going up, right? Um, Factoring in all this, what I think is more fair to, I guess, replace the 50-30-20 rule uh, for today would be more of a 60-20-20 rule, right? And that's allowing for 60% of your income to go to your needs, right? That's again housing, the absolute essentials to life, and then 20-20-20 being wants, 20 being uh, savings. So it's one thing to have this rule that we've defined so far, but how do you implement it? How do you even begin? You're talking about your income and what percentages you're spending, but you can't know what percent of your income is going where unless you're tracking this, right? So that's why I like stress the importance of budgeting your monthly expenses, right? For example, I budget every month so I can look back at the end of the month, or I guess the start of the next month, where did my money go, right? Unless you know where your money is going, you won't know how much money you're making, how much money you're spending. If you're even net positive, right? You could be spending 3,000 more dollars than you're making and be, incurring debt because of that because you're not aware, right? So the first step to even beginning to incorporate this rule would be to track your spending for 1 month, right? You have to start somewhere and get an understanding of, where your income is going in these buckets so you can categorize it and have an idea, right? Maybe you do it the first month, you realize you're spending 80% of your income on just your needs and wants, right? Or like more than that, right? So you have to adjust, but you have to have the data so you can know where to adjust. However, with this, there's the idea that rules like this, again, aren't uniform for everyone, right? Because at the end of the day, personal finance is personal. So what my splits might look like would be totally irrelevant to what yours look like, right? For me, for my example, I think currently about 30% of my income goes to my needs, which is great because I have really good low rent and I try not to spend too much on groceries and other needs in my life. So that way I can prioritize my wants and savings. But if you compare that to someone who's living in, for example, New York, where it's a high cost of living area, they're probably going to be spending more like 60 to 70% of their income on their needs, which would be housing, right? Because prices for rent or ownership in New York are insane to maintain about. So this isn't a one size fits all solution by no means, but it's a good rule of thumb to kind of, embrace the idea that you should track your money and get an idea of how much you're putting in each one of these three buckets. Again, this is just one rule to kind of get an idea of how your money flows through your bank account. And there's plenty of other of these types of rules that you can find online. I'm sure there's people talking about like a 70-30-10 rule or like a some other configuration of this, or even like a 60-40 where you don't have savings or whatever. There's many different ways you can organize these rules and find different metrics online. But I think the theme is constant against all of them, and that it's important to keep track of how you spend your money so that way you can make sure that you are making more money than you're spending so you can be net positive in generating wealth or savings in one way or another, right? And then again, my advice to anyone watching this, if you're uncertain about how you're working with your money currently, is to track it for 1 month. See, you might be surprised about what you find out, but regardless, the data will never hurt you. It will only benefit you and allow you to make smarter choices. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give me a comment down below, how you guys are budgeting, if you're are budgeting or if you're wanting to start budgeting or if you want a video on how I budget my money. Yeah, thank you very much and have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.